Presidential aspirant Donald Trump was shot at a campaign rally. We saw Secret Service agents taking him away, whisking him off the stage, and we saw that his ear was oozing blood. Now, this has opened a debate on whether or not the shooting was staged. We will know more as we follow this story. But coming back to Uganda, Rwandans in Uganda thronged the Rwanda High Commission to cast their vote in the ongoing presidential elections. Those are some of the events that occurred here on our land and, of course, away from Uganda. But I'm sure that Chantal Olive has been following some of the incidents that have been taking place, as well as Jerome Paul Sonko. Good morning, Chantal. I'm great. How are you?
Very well, very well.
That's good. So over the last 48 hours, a lot has been uncovered, a lot has unfolded. What are some of the stories that stood out for you over the weekend?
Well, over the weekend, the first story you gave us about the former president and now presidential candidate Donald Trump being shot at, and I mean, we could go through the conversation, and I mean, he was shot by a Republican, and himself is a Republican, raises some questions, and yeah, and President Joe Biden has come out to condemn violence during election time. But also, the story was voting. There were these voting from the High Commission, and it made me think, how good would it be if Ugandans in the different parts of the world could actually cast their ballots? Yeah.
That's a poignant question right there. And I had the same question on my mind, because oftentimes when we go to the ballot, it's only Ugandans within the borders of Uganda that get to cast their votes. But probably we will see something different come 2026, because the Electoral Commission promised that Ugandans in the diaspora will be able to cast their votes. Good morning, Mr. Jerome Paul Sonko.
Good morning to you, Monica. How are you doing this morning?
I am great. How are you?
I am also doing fantastic. Looking at Donald Trump shooting, making rounds across the various media platforms, you get to realize that the 20-year-old who was now announced dead, who attempted to kill former president and current presidential candidate Donald Trump, well, of course, it posed quite a number of questions on the safety of the participants or the candidates, and of course, sending out also a huge mark on America's democracy. And I think that is why President Joe Biden came out to further clarify that as the people of America, they have to lower the pressure that is associated or attached to the elections or the polls in the US, as we wait to see who will be standing in as or who will be winning as president of the United States. And then also, when you look at the same shooting, it further, gave Donald Trump a point ahead of his competitor, the incumbent, that is Donald Trump, because many were saying the chances are high that this time around he might be receiving some sympathy votes because of this particular attempted assassination of him. And well, different photos have been making rounds on about how strong he is as a leader, and you could easily see him recreating some of those iconic photos. And some of the Republicans, or many of those who are backing Donald Trump as president, were really pushing for the agenda that he has released one of the most iconic pictures or photos of all time, basing on how he was standing with some sheds of blood around his ears. But then, also besides that, my sisters and brothers from Rwanda were also joining the race that is in regards to the elections and the polls, and thousands flocked the High Commission of Rwanda yesterday. The beauty was the many that turned up, and then the fact that they were participating so well in voting for their leader. And this was not only here in Uganda, if you can see the High Commission in Kenya, and then also in Tanzania. So it is a global thing, especially for all the Rwandese that are out of the country. Bringing back those conversations, like Chantal has mentioned, that what will happen in 2026, because we've seen the electoral body here in Uganda, the Electoral Commission, trying to also prepare us for elections in 2026, where we shall have different people who are leaving away from Uganda also voting. I hope that will become a success. If so, I'm waiting.
Indeed, we hope with bated breath to see if that will become a success. But with that being said, let's share some of the news stories that we have managed to gather for you. And we will start with the elections in Rwanda. Rwandans living in Uganda flocked the Rwandan High Commission in Kampala yesterday to cast their ballots in the presidential and parliamentary elections. The elections, which kicked off early morning yesterday, were overseen by Rwanda's High Commissioner to Uganda, Colonel Joseph Rutabana. Rwandans living in Uganda turned out in large numbers yesterday at the Rwandan High Commission in Kampala to participate in their country's presidential and parliamentary elections. The process was overseen by Rwanda's High Commissioner to Uganda, Joseph Rutabana. Before the ballots were cast, Colonel Rutabana and election officials took oaths, emphasizing their commitment to fairness and transparency in the electoral process. Speaking to journalists shortly after, Rutabana highlighted the significant turnout of Rwandans residing in Uganda who registered to vote. We caught up with the voters shortly after casting their votes, and Rwandans will go to the polls this Monday, July 15th, 2024. President Paul Kagame seeks a fourth term in office and faces challengers including Frank Habineza of the Green Party and independent candidate Philippe Mpaimana. Now moving on, President Museveni has congratulated the new Archbishop of Gulu Archdiocese, the Most Reverend Raphael Pimoni Wakorach, and thanked the Catholic Church for maintaining a cordial relationship with the NRM government in working towards the socio-economic transformation of Ugandan society. He said the church has exploited the private sector-friendly policies of the NRM government to extend social services to the public. For instance, the church has constructed a number of schools and hospitals across the country. The president said this is proof that the church leadership is concerned about the material well-being of the believers and called upon the church leaders to continue to sensitize and teach our people about the value of hard work and self-reliance. The message was delivered by the Vice President Jessica Alupo at the installation ceremony at St. Joseph's Catholic Cathedral in Gulu City. Now moving on, the prevailing peace in the region has attracted investors in Karamoja sub-region. Minister for Karamoja Affairs Peter Lokeris has led a team of elders to tour the cement plant at Nadunget Town Council in Moroto District. The cement factory, the first in the region, will produce over 1,000 tons of cement and will employ over 2,000 workers. The mayor, Nadungeti Town Council, says the factory is a blessing to the region because it has engaged many youth. The chairman, Rupa Community Development Trust, which oversees the acquisition of land in the region, Logwe John Bosco, says the investors acquired over 10,000 acres and nobody is complaining since they compensated everybody through the trust. Logwe says those fighting the project are against the development of Karamoja, and with the completion of Karamoja area surveys and the pacification of the region, Karamoja will experience an influx of investors. Currently, Karamoja sub-region has a number of mineral deposits. Now, lastly, in our local news, the Ngamba Island Chimpanzee Sanctuary and Conservation Trust has unveiled Diana Museveni, the new patron of Ngamba Chimpanzee Sanctuary, replacing First Lady Janet Kataha Museveni, who has led for the sanctuary since initiation. This was during the commemoration of World Chimpanzee Day, where she expressed total commitment to working with the leadership of Ngamba Island to conserve the chimpanzee and ensuring that they avert the declining numbers of chimpanzee in Uganda and the world at large. Diana Museveni called for collective efforts among the public in conserving wildlife and ensuring that their habitats are protected from encroachers and fight illegal poaching of wildlife. Now that does it for our local news. Let's now launch into international news.
Well, internationally, we start with the U.S. and the President Joe Biden has condemned the assassination attempt on his predecessor Donald Trump in a primetime address from the White House, telling Americans that U.S. politics must never be a killing field. Trump, the presumptive Republican nominee for president, was wounded in the ear after a gunman opened fire at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. One person was killed and two were critically injured in the attack. In the Oval Office address, just the third of his presidency, Mr. Biden urged Americans to take a step back and warned that political rhetoric in this country has gotten very heated. No matter how strong our convictions, we must never descend into violence, Mr. Biden said in remarks that lasted just under 7 minutes. His short but forceful address largely went off without a hitch amidst ongoing scrutiny following a number of high-profile verbal slips. In his primetime address, the president called on Americans to come together and warned that increasing political polarization meant November's election would be a time of testing. Still about the U.S., former U.S. President Donald Trump has arrived in Wisconsin for the Republican National Convention a day after surviving an assassination attempt. The party conference in Milwaukee is going ahead as planned despite Saturday evening's shooting at a rally in Pennsylvania in which Trump was shot in the ear. Trump posted on social media that he had considered delaying his trip by 2 days, but have just decided that I cannot allow a shooter or potential assassin to force change to scheduling or anything else. The attack on Trump has put a heightened focus on safety and security of the event, which begins on Monday today at the arena that is home to the NBA Milwaukee Bucks basketball team. But Audrey Gibson Cicino, RNC coordinator for the U.S. Secret Service, said during a Sunday afternoon news conference in Milwaukee that there would be no changes to the security plan, and some 50,000 people are expected to attend the four-day jamboree of pageantry, politics and policy as the party makes its case to voters ahead of November's general election. Now back to Africa, Rwanda's President Paul Kagame, feared and admired in equal measure, is seeking to extend his 24-year role in an election. Analysts say he will win by a landslide. He has dominated every election since becoming president in 2000 with over 90% of the vote, and in 2017 he won with a staggering 99%. Mr. Kagame, 66, faces off against the only two contenders who were authorized to run. Other candidates were barred by the state-run Electoral Commission. President Kagame has been at the helm of Rwandan politics since his rebel forces took power at the end of the 1994 genocide, which killed some 800,000 ethnic Tutsis and moderate Hutus. Since then, he has been praised for overseeing the country's dramatic revival and unifying the country. Rwanda was 30 years ago essentially written off, but thanks to some extent to the leadership under Kagame and his ruling party, Rwanda managed to build some stability Dr. Felix Ndahinda, a scholar at the Great Lakes region, told news agencies. But his critics have accused Mr. Kagame of not allowing any opposition to the extent of orchestrating cross-border assassinations of dissidents. Mr. Kagame has always fiercely defended Rwanda's record on human rights, saying his country respects political freedom. And lastly, matters climate, as the summer of 2024 is on track to become the hottest on record, scientists are digging deep into the Earth's coldest corners to recover an icy record of what the atmosphere was like hundreds of thousands of years ago. It is amazing that we have this ability to see back into time and see what the Earth's environment, including the climate, has changed radically and in many different ways, said University of California, Berkeley professor Kat Caffey. The researchers are using a powerful tool called ice coring. Caffey and ice core paleoclimatologist told CBS News Bay Area how his field is a major achievement of modern science. The technique used by the oil industry to drill wells is now being used to study our ancient atmosphere and climate. Researchers drill into glaciers and ice sheets to retrieve vertical cylinders of ice created from hundreds of centuries of snowfall. Each layer is a frozen time capsule telling the story of what the Earth was like when the layer of snow fell. And that tops the stories in our international and local news this morning.
Well, thank you, Chantal. Now let's go to Joram Paul Sonko to give us highlights from the dailies this morning.
Well, from our dailies, I have two papers with me, two from Uganda, then two of those are coming in across the region. With the New Vision starting the park. Now, the New Vision is big headlines is looking at the retreat in Chankwanzi. Inside cabinet retreat, more members of parliament face arrest and accounting officers have been asked to be firm. Then at the top of the New Vision, you can read about Rukutana's newest bride. The man keeps on adding to his tally. Then in the foreign news, how Trump survived the shooting. Read the story within the New Vision. Then also, Church of Uganda warns on misuse of robes. Find more in the New Vision. Then 30 years of Ireland in Uganda. Find details as well as we celebrate the existence of the diplomacy and diplomatic ties between Ireland and Uganda. As police search for missing young woman, find that report in the New Vision. Then we now take our focus onto the Daily Monitor because Otafire fires up youth to rise up. This was during the Kampala International University graduation on Friday. As in between the line, the Damascus moment, Internal Affairs Minister Major General Kahinda Otafire, without referring to any government official, takes a dig at those using public offices to enrich themselves. And he was further saying that especially those that use the public offices to enrich themselves, saying they did go to the bush to come and steal public resources. He challenged the youth to support those who are standing up to say no. Then Trump is shooting pals on history of political assassinations in the US. The Daily Monitor has a report on that. Then healthy living, Mpaji's journey of living with lupus. Then also Katanga case, the deceased feared his phone was tracked as French firms to invest over 15 billion Ugandan shillings in Uganda. And elsewhere, government is to install 3,500 vehicle charging spots as the journey to e-mobility continues to take shape in the country. Then off to Kenya, the Daily Nation, police theories on city query death. The acting IG Douglas Kanja transfers all officers at nearby police station as residents continue to protest. That is more in the crime. Then Trump assassinations scare as White House path gets clearer, says the Daily Nation. Then governance, I am fully in charge, President Williams Ruto says. Then the Ethiopian plane crash windfall, families, lawyers to be paid more. Then also, cracks widen in Azimio over Ruto's call for the talks. As the Paris Olympics, you haven't seen nothing yet, says Faith Chipchongon. Then lastly, with press reviews, the Citizen newspaper from Tanzania, which is highlighting government is planned to further boost food reserves. And then TARI develops 14 seed varieties for key food and commercial crops. Then international conflict, why Hamas is pulling out of Gaza, of the Gaza truce talks. Then gun attack on Trump draws global condemnation. Read about the leaders who greatly condemned this shooting. Then Tanzania needs 33 Tanzanian shillings to transform food systems. More of that is within these papers, so you can grab a copy and read some of these stories.
Well, thank you, Jerome Paul. Now, among the stories you shared, there was one which said Trump's attempted assassination piles on America's assassination attempts on presidents. And I just found a report here. These assassinations and assassination attempts actually date back to the 1800s. And the first one was in 1835 when Richard Lawrence attempted to shoot President Andrew Jackson. Now, the president survived. But then in 1865, also President Abraham Lincoln was shot at. He survived. But in 1881, President James Garfield didn't make it. And in 1901, President William McKinley was also shot at. Obviously, we remember one of the biggest being John F. Kennedy that was also shot at, and unfortunately, he never survived. We are happy that the former president, Donald Trump, made it, and hopefully this will not happen again as the campaign rallies continue.
Olive, then also the Daily Monitor is sharing something here,
yes,
coming in from Major General Kahinda Otafire. On Friday, he made some statements against corrupt government officials, and he called upon the young people to rise up and say no to any corrupt official who is misusing public funds.
Yes.
And, well, many have been backing this statement coming in from Major General Kahinda Otafire. And of course, he did mention, just like the Daily Monitor has highlighted, he did not mention any corrupt official, but he rather left the statement wide open for people to think for themselves who he was, or who these officials that he was trying to refer to on Friday.
So basically, he left it to the interpretation of the masses. Well, it's still Good Morning Uganda. We continue with different conversations, so stick with us. But for now, we'll leave you with Rachel Platten and Better Place. Stay tuned. Well, welcome to the new week and welcome to Good Morning Uganda. I hope you had a beautiful weekend, as I did, and I hope that you're ready for the new week, because with a new week comes new blessings and new tidings. So my hope for you today is that you're ready to start this beautiful week with a positive attitude and revitalized energy. My name is Olive Monica Najuma, and in Studio B, I have Chantal Olive Akandinda and Jerome Paul Sonko, and we will be taking you through this beautiful Monday morning up until the hour of 9 o'clock. Now, over the weekend, events unfolded in the United States when former president and also presidential aspirant Donald Trump was shot at a campaign rally. We saw secret service agents taking him away, whisking whisking him off the stage, and we saw that his ear was oozing blood. Now, this has opened a debate on whether or not the shooting was staged. We will know more as we follow this story. But coming back to Uganda, Rwandans in Uganda thronged the Rwanda High Commission to cast their vote in the ongoing presidential elections. Those are some of the events that occurred here on our land and, of course, away from Uganda. But I'm sure that Chantal Olive has been following some of the incidents that have been taking place, as well as Jerome Paul Sonko. Good morning, Chantal. I'm great. How are you?
Very well, very well.
That's good. So over the last 48 hours, a lot has been uncovered, a lot has unfolded. What are some of the stories that stood out for you over the weekend?
Well, over the weekend, the first story you gave us about the former president and now presidential candidate Donald Trump being shot at, and I mean, we could go through the conversation, and I mean, he was shot by a Republican, and he himself is a Republican. Raises some questions, and yeah, and President Joe Biden has come out to condemn violence during election time. But also, the story was voting. There were these voting from the High Commission, and it made me think, how good would it be if Ugandans in the different parts of the world could actually cast their ballots? Yeah.
That's a poignant question right there. And I had the same question on my mind, because oftentimes when we go to the ballot, it's only Ugandans within the borders of Uganda that get to cast their votes. But probably we will see something different come 2020.
You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000. Or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21 hash and select daily, or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja to the town or city near you. Between July and December this year, don't miss Uganda's beautiful stories from east to west, north to south in Tuko Pamoja.
Uganda, as we see today, never had a name. It had the regions that make it.
The battle for protecting the sovereign Uganda was lost in Dokolo.
Uganda, fortunately for us, is a confluence of all these races, the races of Africa.
Bunyoro would have simply created an East African community that we are looking for today.
The rulers of Bunyoro are actually Luos.
Genetically, we are even
Similar people.
We are one. Use that word, Pamoja.
To get a ticket, call 0778 787 660. Tuko Pamoja?
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, thank you for sticking with us. This is time for our news brill. Time check is 7 o'clock on the dot this July morning of 15th. My name is Olive Monica Najoma, and I'm joined by Chantal Oliver Kandinda and Jerome Paul Sonko in Studio B. Now, there has been talk and call onto the government to inspire Ugandans and put efforts forward in ensuring that Ugandans embrace clean energy cooking. Reports indicate that we'll lose many Ugandans annually due to terrible cooking gas energies that are emitted from some of the ways that we use currently, like charcoal stoves, like firewood. So there has been a call for Uganda to embrace clean energy cooking. Now, when we say clean energy cooking, examples entail using cooking gas and electricity, to mention but a few. But can Ugandans afford this? Or is this the best way to go? These are the questions that we are asking, and we'll be answering some. But you can join the conversation through WhatsApp number 0709602592, or you can send in your views via our X app, and the hashtag is UBCGMU. We shall be able to get your views and share them. Also, you could advise. And in Studio B, like I said, I have Chantal Oliver Kandinda and Jerome Paul Sonko, and together we launch into this conversation. Now, I'll go to you, Sonko, first. When we mention clean energy cooking, and then we also look at the fact that many Ugandans die due to terrible gases that are emitted from the current ways of cooking, like charcoal and firewood. Why do you think, or how do you think we can actually move forward? How best can we manage to have Ugandans onto the different aspect of cooking using clean energy?
I was going to start off with increasing the investment in the renewable energy, but I've come to realize that the most important bit is going to be creating room for sensitization. You know, awareness. Why? Because when you go away from the city or from most of the suburbs, where at least some people have been utilizing, let's say, gas, using gas while cooking, you got to realize that in rural settings, people are still using firewood. So in simple terms, they are still cutting down trees and taking this firewood as the source of their cooking or the source of fire to cook. And remember, when it comes to value addition of the firewood, we end up with charcoal.
Yes.
Now, when it comes to charcoal, this is where you see the production increasing in order to meet the demands of what is happening in the market that is in the suburbs, in the city suburbs, which means the most important aspect here is to create room for awareness and sensitization of the masses to shift efforts to more safer alternatives. Now, when it comes to the safer alternatives here, you're looking at things like hydro, and well, hydro is a little bit expensive though, because here you're talking about electricity.
Yes.
That is cooking using electricity, and you realize it will become quite expensive or costly, more so for people who are not in urban settings. Because even those in the urban areas, not everyone can afford cooking because of the high electricity tariffs in the country. But when it comes to geothermal energy sources, and then the most affordable among some of these is looking at solar, because of, if someone can access a solar panel, and I've seen, if you've traveled enough, you can also realize that in most of the villages in Uganda, at least most of the homesteads are having some mini solar panels where they can easily light up their houses. So this is not necessarily something that we can look at and say it can be used for cooking per se, but at least it can be an alternative in the long run. And that is if the government can open up to ideas of increasing investment into, putting money into hydro, putting money into solar energy, and trying to transfer all these sources to various regions within the country. But then also there is an element to do with improving energy infrastructure. That is when it comes to the transmission. We've seen, let's say, the national grid. Umeme, per se, has been ensuring that they make sure they light up the entire country. And as much as we are looking at electricity being an expensive alternative, but having it, across the country, at least also makes it easier for people to access this energy. But then there is also biogas. I think there are some homes that actually utilize biogas pretty often, and this is not something that we've looked at steadily, but it does give us an alternative for clean energy.
All right, now looking at the alternatives, I want us to also first of all look at the impact of cooking gas emissions to Uganda's health. Do we have numbers, Chantal, of how many Ugandans are affected by the gases that come from cooking energy sources like charcoal, firewood, to mention but a few?
Well, before I'll just jump in with the numbers here. Before we even jump steadily into the numbers, you got to realize that as we're having conversations of climate change, I think that is going to be the biggest point where we can start from, because using, you know, the kind of, let's say, cooking alternatives that we have currently, you do realize that there is a lot of gas emissions that we have. Now, also, going back to the clean cooking that many people are looking out for, you do realize that even in urban settings, there is a very huge concern about us having less information on the safer measures of cooking. And I will definitely speak for myself, because you get to realize that at times we find ourselves either using charcoal and we don't know its impact, and we will only be addressing it, but it has very huge impacts on the type of food we consume, the environment that we live in, and what it means after this charcoal has been burnt out of the firewood in different areas.
Yes, now considering that point, Chantal, what is the impact of the emissions of cooking gas on Ugandans so far?
Well, one, as we are trying to see how to get to the best part, or can I call it the best part, or yes, the best part of this information and research, you're going to find that the biggest percentage of households in our country are actually accustomed to using charcoal, especially, and that has had an impact, one, on the individual's health-wise, and also on the environment, because we have seen the different changes that have been taking place in our country. Now, you're looking at Uganda having lost about 68.7 thousand hectares of natural forest, and that was equivalent to 36.3 million tons of carbon emissions alone. That is just as of by 2023. That is how much we had lost. Now, still also it indicates that in areas like Lango sub-region, and this area comprises of the likes of Otuke, Lira, Apach, Oyam, and others, they had lost about 631 hectares of tree cover, and this was equivalent to 404.3 hectares, 0.3 thousand tons of carbon emission. And by 2023, if you look at where we were headed, or when you were to study that, by 2023, actually districts, that is the likes of Gulu, Nwoya, and Omoro, they had lost about, all of those combined, had lost about 2.8 thousand hectares of forest cover, and this was equivalent to 1.4 million tons of carbon emissions. So where do these emissions go? Into the atmosphere, and that means that is why we are seeing climate change issues. That is why we are seeing increase in decline in health conditions of some of the individuals that are directly involved in the usage of some of these can I call them unhealthy alternatives that we are seeing? Yes.
World Health Organization, over 23,000 Ugandans died due to smoke-related illnesses. So one would wonder, how best can clean energy cooking ensure that Ugandans' lives are saved?
Well, to ensure that, let's even drive this conversation back to the women event that happened last week. Some of the women were looking at empowering of the women. In what sense? They were looking at, if you want to have access to clean energy, the women were calling upon the government to empower them and liberate most of them from the burden of traditional cooking methods. Why? Because to them, if they are liberated from the same, the chances are they are going to champion, and which in turn is going to have a huge impact on the kind of cooking methods we are using as a country. And this is highly something that they were calling for, because in a society that we've been groomed, or where we have been groomed from, you get to realize that it has always been the women who have been highly looked at. And please don't mark me wrong, but they've highly been looked at as the main people who are always managing the kitchen. Now, as to why we need them to be liberated from the traditional means, is that this will then teach the future generation that, well, charcoal and firewood is not the only alternative to clean cooking. We can have gas, we can use maybe electricity, we can use biogas to, to create cooking energy. So it would be quite impactful in such a situation. And then there's also something to do with the entrepreneurial opportunities. If we can also look at them, because today they are laying a very huge foundation as an alternative route for many to look out for alternative means in clean cooking. Because when you look at most of the technological improvements that are coming in from different entrepreneurs, it has actually laid a very huge precedent on many people now adopting, because now business people are setting up new ideas, or they are coming up with new cooking ideas that they are providing on the market, and that is also quite impactful on the journey that we want to have. So empowering them will also be very important.
Well, Jerome, there is empowerment and then there is affordability, because according to the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, it says that only 22% of Ugandans are using electricity to cook. But also it opens the question on affordability. So how, in your opinion, how best can government and also individuals work together to make clean energy cooking accessible and affordable to Ugandans, especially those that live in rural areas?
The alternatives. I think we need to just open up room for more alternatives. Because the fact that electricity is a little bit expensive, you get to realize that we now have to look into alternatives, because there are so many.
Which we do have actually.
Jerome Paul, the alternatives among these is cooking gas. But we know that to buy, let's say, the smallest cylinder, you need around 150,000 shillings.
Yes.
And that is the alternative to electricity, because most of the homesteads that are using clean energy cooking are using gas. But
we do have other options.
We have other
the question
options,
is, how affordable are these alternatives? Let's look at Ugandans that are not even earning $1 a day.
With the alternatives that are available, the most expensive here would be hydroelectric power. And when you look at when you look at how, on the grid, when you look at how accessible all these things are, you realize that electricity is at 38% and solar is at 8%, biomass is at 31%. Now, I want to put my emphasis on biomass. It is a cheaper alternative.
What is biomass in layman's language?
I don't know how to explain biomass in layman's language, but usually what they use is
organic waste.
Yes.
They use organic waste.
So those are briquettes.
Yeah, they use organic waste, and it can be converted into biogas for cooking and even electricity generation. At times it's not only, I think it is also inclusive of some waste.
Okay.
Yes,
so
it is
from
inclusive of waste. It could be human waste
like
or
briquettes.
animal waste, yes.
Okay.
And you know, in rural settings, many of the people at least
they have access to animal waste, for example. And I've personally...
Only maybe the tools to turn it to bio.
That's the part. That's the part that probably would be giving them challenges. But I believe if Ugandans are equipped with, I've had first-hand interactions with people that are using biomass or biogas in their homes, and It is one of the easiest things to use at the moment. And if only we got more training, more capacity building, more sensitization when it comes to the use of biomass, I believe it would be a better alternative when it comes to renewable energy, but also when it comes to an alternative to the energy that we are using that is harmful to both our health and to the environment.
Okay, so now that we have looked at the alternative sources of energy that we can use in cooking, what do you think are the deterrents, apart from affordability and accessibility? What are some of the other deterrents that we are making it impossible, or the reason why many Ugandans are not looking at using them as alternatives?
Look at how available or how accessible it is for you to get electricity, for example. Yes. Aside from the fact that it's expensive, I need you to look at, okay, we've had the rural electrification happening, but the question is, are all the rural areas that are using firewood, for example, do they have electricity? That is one. Two, if in Kampala you can experience load shedding every day, or at least 3 days in a week, what does that imply? Does that mean that people in the remote areas are going to be having access to constant and consistent supply of electricity? I don't know if Umeme can answer that question. So you're looking at availability, but if I am in a village and there is firewood everywhere, I have trees in my farm, all I have to do is go collect firewood. I'll even send my kids, go collect firewood for lunch, yeah? These people cut down the trees and make should I call it timber, probably, and then if you see how they arrange it, they're very even organized. They arrange it ready for it to dry and use it for, for cooking at home. So you're looking at accessibility of these alternatives that are harmful to our health and environment compared to the accessibility of the alternative sources that should be a lot better for us to use.
Well, there is also the inadequate, storage solutions, especially when it comes to inadequate energy storage solutions. You see, when you look at charcoal, people who buy charcoal, let's say, they can actually buy close to 20 sacks of charcoal, for example, and they have where they can store that charcoal, and it will be it can still be used for a full year. Now, when it comes to let's say gas also, maybe the only problem is with gas, that if it runs, it never even lets you know that there is nothing that tells you that the gas is done.
There is, but I think if you've used it for quite some time, you may know, because the burner
I only hope changes. We have students at the universities here in Uganda who are looking for something that can really give us a signal that your gas is almost getting used.
There is one energy supplier that had introduced a cylinder which was transparent. I don't know if it's still on the market though, but there was
transparent,
just one.
You said.
Yes,
it would be a marvel.
You could see it's there. Please go ahead.
So when you also look at that, it is very difficult because you're giving people alternatives to use. But how sustainable are these solutions? You see, Ugandans love something that is sustainable and that keeps them in their comfort. Something that will not overstrain them. And you realize with charcoal, someone with only 2,000 Ugandan shillings will just go with, let's say, polythene. A whole meal is prepared. In fact, from breakfast, lunch, and when you also look at firewood, for example, if someone is close to a forest, they know that is sustainable at that level. So we need to have, with these alternatives, how can we create sustainable, solutions that are going to help these people know that, well, you're using clean energy, but it's not going to be, one, it's not going to be costly. Then two, you can have it at any time you want. Now, for example, with electricity, you never know when Womeme is going to do its things. Yes. You never know when you're going to have a blackout.
And a little drizzle.
And you're back.
The other thing I would suggest would be, the other reason I think we are seeing a prevalence is because of the attitudes and the mindsets of some of the Ugandans. It's going to take you a lot to go and convince this person who has seen their grandmother, their great-grandmother, and then their father cook using firewood. It's going to take you a minute to change their mind, to show them that, listen, you have an alternative you can use that is probably faster, that is probably, you know, more health-friendly and more cost-friendly, and it's going to take them a minute for them to understand that that's what they are used to. So we're going to have to go back down to these Ugandans and let them know that there is alternatives to the energy they are using and safer alternatives.
And speaking of safer alternatives, you did also mention something to do with the impact on their health. We've talked about the alternatives, we've talked about the benefits and everything, but we have not addressed why we are fighting so hard to ensure that Ugandans embrace cooking energy, clean cooking energy. But there is a point of cooking related illness. Sorry, I beg your pardon. There is a point on smoke related illnesses, and there is actually a smoke related crisis. So what are some of the dangers of using the cooking energies that we are used to, like charcoal stoves, which use charcoal, or even firewood? What are some of the dangers that a Ugandan needs to know about? Because for most people, you light a charcoal stove, you put your charcoal, it emits some smoke, and that is something they're used to. They don't know that there is a danger to that.
Well, you're looking at people standing a chance or at high risk of contracting lung cancer due to the smoke that is emitted from the firewood or even the charcoal. And you're also looking at heart disease going forward. You're looking at things like stroke. This is out of high blood pressure, usually all low blood pressure. And then you're looking at, I mentioned lung cancer, stroke, and heart disease. Now, there is even an estimate. There's an estimate, according to the Centers for Disease Control, that coronary heart disease by 2 to 4 times, and this is like the effect it has on people, and the stroke is 2 to also 4 times. So that means that much as we don't, you know, these are things that don't happen immediately.
Yes.
And that is why it's even hard to change the mindset of this person. They'll tell you, my grandfather died at 70, 90 or 100.
We all used firewood and charcoal stoves. Did we die?
Thank you. And it's going to take a minute to convince this person that, listen, it doesn't happen overnight. It's progressive. That is why someone dies and they're like, they couldn't find the cause, especially if they're not able to do a post-mortem in some of those areas where they're not able to.
I understand what you're saying, and I remember when we were speaking about environmental degradation, I remember when we were speaking to Dr. Akankwasa, the Executive Director, National Environment Management Authority, when he talked about the gases, because it is said, especially here in Kampala, that we do not have clean air in Kampala. There are high levels of pollution happening. And I remember him mentioning that firewood and charcoal stoves are some of the contributors to the air pollution that we experience in Kampala and neighboring areas, basically in different parts of the country, not just Kampala. I don't want you to misquote me and say, you see, it is just a Kampala problem.
It's a Kampala problem.
And
you know, by the way, that is the kind of mindset that we need to first of all change.
Yes.
Is that most of the people who are not in, let's say, town areas feel very comfortable when some of these conversations come up. They pretty much de-associate themselves to some of the problems. But when you look at most of these diseases, is the beauty, which is the unfortunate bit of it, is that when it comes to illnesses, it does not isolate. It takes everyone.
Location does not matter. Well, how can we accelerate access to clean energy, affordable, clean cooking energy? That's the conversation we are having today. And you can share your views through WhatsApp number 0709 602 592. I have comments coming through, and this one says, people should resort to charcoal briquettes, which burns for 8 hours at a cost of only 2,000 shillings. And he also says people should report charcoal. He was just clarifying on his point. He says briquettes are eco-friendly and they do not smoke. the smoke made out of their biodegradable waste, which protects deformation. Basically, he's saying they are safe because they are made from eco-friendly materials that will not cause a danger to your health. And Jerome, I've heard about briquettes for a long time. I just don't know why Ugandans have not yet embraced them, even in urban centers. So do you think this is a case of policies that need to be changed so that Ugandans can have a mindset change when we have government also in control?
Well, it is. It is. But there is also a worry about the briquettes. Some of them are actually made using the charcoal residues.
Yes, charcoal residue.
How is it called in Uganda? The rusenyente.
Yes, and I think they only add a few other ingredients.
Then they add, let's say, cow dung and, you know, or some actually use banana leaves, dry banana leaves. But it can be a huge alternative, like you said. But it goes back to how much effort government is going to put. We've seen many institutions or technical institutions where students actually making safer briquettes. So it is something that we can look at. And of course, you see, this when it comes to this clean cooking issue, just like NEMA revealed that these are some of the contributors to air pollution, we have got to think through right from the administrative point of view that as the government is looking at these things, how do you follow up? Do you how do you ensure that Ugandans are not only focused on, let's say, charcoal burning and firewood?
So
allow
what
them,
policy changes and
the policy changes
should
really
need
to be implemented. But the biggest one would be ensuring that you're empowering, let's say, these technical institutions, because this is where many of the things are going to come from. Because in the world that we are moving in, you realize that you have to empower students as well. And then too, going back to the issue that the women in entrepreneurship were actually calling upon the government to do, to empower the women from the traditional means, and then, teach them that with these new artificial means or these new technology advancements, there are always safer cleaning options. And of course, I've seen the Ministry of Energy over the years, just recently anyway, trying to preach the gospel of using, gas or gas cookers. But we've also looked at the fact that gas cookers are a little bit expensive. So that is also something that the government can sit down and see how affordable can we create most of these alternatives for the many Ugandans out there.
There was a drive to give Ugandans cooking stoves, gas cooking stoves. Do we know if it is still ongoing and how many Ugandans benefited from that?
I won't lie. I don't know the numbers now offhand, but not so many benefited. But those who benefited are still using these particular stoves. That is courtesy of the success stories.
Okay. Now, Chantal, as we close, among the policies and regulations that we are looking out for from the government to ensure that people embrace clean energy cooking, Jerome has mentioned the gas and probably how to make it more affordable. But there is the initial purchase of, let's say, the cooking stove. But then there is also the refilling. What ways or mechanisms can the government employ to ensure that not only is it cheaper to buy at the start, but also that refilling is affordable? Because that's where the main problem is.
Well, we'd have to go back down to what makes the prices go so high. For example, if we are importing some of the equipment or some of the material that is needed, how about we get into some agreements with, say, the manufacturers or even the countries that export to us to be able to get better prices? Now, that's where the country would probably negotiate better prices for the citizens. But also you can look at if there are high taxes levied on the individuals or on the companies that bring in these things, maybe the taxes could also be reduced a little bit. And then maybe we could have the conversation on reduce prices, because the higher the taxes, the higher the price, the cost, and that again, it does not help the Ugandan.
It makes the end product even more expensive.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, Jerome Paul and Chantal Olive. We've been having a conversation on ways through which we can improve accessibility to clean energy cooking so that we can be able to avert the smoke-related crisis or illnesses that we encounter in the country. I'm sure you've heard of stories, of read stories in the papers where someone had a sigiri in their house and the occupants suffocated to death. Yes, many people don't know that if you leave a charcoal stove burning in the house, especially one that is not well ventilated, you might actually suffocate to death. But even away from suffocation, Chantal has shared with us some of the illnesses that are related to smoke. If you inhale a lot of smoke, you might have lung cancer in the long run or heart-related illnesses, among others. So there is cause for alarm as to why we should stop using certain ways of cooking and embrace clean energy. How to do that? That's the conversation we've been having, but we won't go any further. But stick around, because Irene Allen Namisango is right here to give us updates in the tourism world with Good Morning Uganda Tourism Express.
Juko. Yo. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model, PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja to the town or city near you between July and December this year. Don't miss Uganda's beautiful stories from east to west, north to south in Tuko Pamoja.
Uganda as we see today, it had the regions that make it.
The battle for protecting the sovereign Uganda was lost in Dokolo.
Uganda, fortunately for us, is a confluence of all these races, the races of Africa.
Bunyoro would have simply created an East African community that we are looking for today.
The rulers of Bunyoro are actually Luos.
Genetically, we are even similar people.
We are one. Use that word, Pamoja.
To get a ticket, call 0778 787 660. Tuko Pamoja?
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
A very good morning to all our viewers. My good name is Irene Alenamisang, and thank you so much for keeping up. This is the time for the GME Tourism Express, where we take you through everything that is happening in the world of travel. In the tourism sector, are you interested in investing in the tourism sector? Are you a tour guide? Are you employed in this sector? Do you want to know what is happening in the travel world? This is the perfect time for you to always tune in and get all the information that you need to know about the tourism sector. And it is a good habit to always start the day with us, because it is always beautiful that you start the day being updated on what is happening in the different sectors of the economy, what is happening in the country, what is happening globally, because you never know, the world is so fast, and you never know, one day you can wake up and you find that almost everything is changed from the normal. But if you do not keep up with what is happening in the world, you could be shocked and surprised by what is happening the following day. So it is a good habit that you always let us start that day with you, with inspiring stories, with very beautiful stories that are happening around the nation, East Africa, and the whole world. Well, today, going into the travel news, the world of tourism, the tourism sector has been very busy. So many things are really happening, others are going to happen, others are ongoing, and you find that it is really beautiful to see that the tourism sector, so many people are engaging in this sector, different activities are going on, and it is really, really growing at a very high speed and a very high rate, to see that the sector is developing at this rate. And in the travel news, first, something great is really happening in the sports tourism sector, and this is the Mountain Rwenzori Marathon. It is started to happen on the 24th of August. That is next month. It is this Rwenzori Marathon. This is, I think, the 3rd edition of the marathon, and I should say it is really elevating Uganda's sports tourism. Sports tourism is one of those aspects in the country that has somehow been neglected. And you see, we've been promoting a lot of wildlife safaris, we've promoted cultural tourism, culinary tourism, but sports tourism has somehow been neglected. But with this marathon, you look at the trends that it is taking. I'm telling you already, if you look around on social medias, X, Instagram, different influencers, global influencers are posting about this marathon, and they are excited to come. I saw one influencer who is always running from the desert saying that, I'm excited to change from desert runs to now wildlife, nature runs. And it is amazing to see that a marathon is going to be set with a backdrop of Mountain Rwenzori. Remember, Mountain Rwenzori is one of those beautiful features that we have in the country. One of those very rare mountains that are crossed by the equator, yet they are always still snow-capped. So it is amazing to see that we have this marathon. It is going to be a blend of sports, a blend of adventure, a blend of tourism, everything that you need to know. And you know, it is happening in Kasese, and the developments that are happening here, a lot of economic improvements, people are going to earn from this marathon. So it is a very great move for Uganda's tourism sector, because it is attracting several tourists, several sports people, several athletics people, like so many people that are coming in for this marathon. So that is a plus for the country, to see that we organize such marathons that come in and attract several tourists coming in into the country. Still in the travel news, yesterday was the World Chimpanzee Day, and this day started in 2018 by the Jane Goodall Institute. Jane Goodall is a very famous personality who worked so hard in promoting making sure that these wildlife species, the chimps, are preserved, are conserved for the future generations. And yesterday was the World Chimpanzee Day, and the emphasis was so much put on promoting the coexistence of humans and the chimps. Remember that chimps have 98.7 DNA of humans, so they are nearly humans. They have emotions, they understand, they love, they are kind, they laugh. So they have emotions just like humans, and there is need to protect these chimps for the future generations. You know, it would be very sad that our great-grandchildren can come in and there are no chimps, just like some of the animals that we've just heard about. For example, the dinosaurs, we've just heard about them, but we never saw them. So we need to protect these species to see that also the future generations are able to see them. But also remember, wildlife conservation and conserving, particularly the chimps, it is also one way that even the humans are benefiting from, because through tourism, through chimp trekking, other activities, people are able to earn from these wildlife species. So the World Chimpanzee Day was just a reminder that yes, we need more efforts, we need to create more awareness, that we make sure that we promote and conserve these wildlife species, the chimps that we have in the country. And remember, Uganda is one of still the very few countries that have the chimps as part of their wildlife species. And in Uganda, you can do chimpanzee trekking in Chibale Forest National Park. That is the primate capital of the chimps in the whole world. So that is the only spot we are going to spot more than 13 chimpanzee species. So it is amazing and it is very beautiful for you to come and do chimpanzee trekking in Uganda. But there are also other destinations where you can do chimpanzee trekking. Talk about Kalinzu Forest. You can go to Queen Elizabeth, Chambora Gorge. You can go to Ngamba Island Chimpanzee Sanctuary. You can see the chimps at Uwek. You can see the chimps in Budongo. So many destinations where you can do chimp trekking in the country. So if you haven't seen these chimps and you would really want to come and see these chimps, Uganda is a very perfect destination for you to come and do chimp trekking. Still in the travel news, over the weekend we had the Auto Moto Show Kampala, and this was at Kololo Airstrip, and this is a show that showcases different cars, different automotives, and from the luxury cars, the vintage cars, everything was showcased here. So this is an expo that puts up a blend between fashion, sports, tourism, and you see that this is an event that brings together people that are interested in cars, people that have passion to know more about the technology, the innovations that are coming up with cars, people that want to explore how the old cars were functioning and how the recent cars are functioning. And it is nice that you see that people come in to see these cars. People are interested. So any event that brings together people, it is nice for the country because these are events. This is MICE tourism. And remember that the order of the day or something that is really picking up in the tourism sector is MICE tourism. So any event that brings together people, any event that attracts people, it is really important to the tourism sector, and it is just important that we support these events. We go in and push them. Just imagine if we had several safari vans that are showcased on this automotive. By the way, there are no safari vans that we are showcased, but just imagine we had vans, we had Land Cruisers, we had super customs that show tourists that yes, if you come into the country, we have the perfect safari vans that are going to take you around through the jungles of Uganda and you explore all the beauty that there is in the country. Well, that was a plus for the tourism sector and the whole country to have this show as a success as it was held at Kololo Airstrip. So next time, if you miss this one, next time please make sure that you don't miss. You go and enjoy this show and explore the different cars that are in the country and also the innovations that are happening in the automotive industry. Still in the travel news, like I said, a lot has been happening in the travel world, and the 4th edition of the travel writing competition is open for submissions, and this is for the aspiring travel writers. You don't even need to be the best travel writer, but if you have passion to talk about Uganda's tourism, if you have passion to talk about conservation, and you can pen this down, it is a perfect time for you to submit in your stories. Several writers have come in and several prizes are coming in. Smartphones, cash prizes, fully paid trips. So the 4th edition is open for all submissions, even if you've never written before, but you feel this is a field that you need to start working in, because we are looking at the travel writing competition is looking at creating travel writing as a new profession in the industry. Just like we have tour guides, we have tour consultants, we have reservations, even travel writing is a profession that we have to improve in the country. Just imagine when maybe the biggest travel magazines in the world, like Wanderlust, they want to write about gorilla trekking. They are going to send in a writer from their country to come and write and document about gorilla trekking in the country. Yet, a country is best sold out by people by its natives. So, stories for Uganda are best written by the Ugandans because we know everything that is happening here. So this is an opportunity for all aspiring travel writers to engage in this travel writing competition and also know. And you could be the next travel writer of the year. So if you're an aspiring or budding travel writer, please make sure that you submit in your articles and get to know what is happening and get to know, and maybe you can be the next travel writer. Still, and the last one in the travel news today is that Buganda Heritage and Tourism Board unveiled a new craft center and other tourism products. So for a very long time, Buganda Heritage and Tourism Board has been using the Royal Palace, the Royal Mile Walk, the Parliament as the only attractions that it has been having. The Kabaka's Lake, those were the few attractions that Buganda Heritage has been having. But it is spicing up with experiential tourism, experiential activities, and these activities were unveiled fully last week when the board for Uganda Tourism Board visited Buganda Heritage for a tour around. Remember, Kasubi Tombs has just been opened back to the public, and people can now visit Kasubi Tombs. Remember, from the third occasion that happened about 10 years back when Kasubi Tombs was burnt, it was now fully furnished back, it is fully constructed back, and it is open to the public. So Buganda opened new products to the tourists. There is experiential tourism. You will go to the gardens, you will know how to harvest matoke, you will know how to prepare it, how is it steamed, you will know how to prepare luwombo, and then you also have it there. So it is a lot is happening at Buganda. Find time, go visit the Royal Palace, go visit the Parliament, go have a walk along the Royal Mile. There are very many beautiful stories that you will need to explore, and that will also entice you, and you know more about the Buganda culture. That was also a plus for the Buganda Heritage and Tourism Board to introduce new products. This is the scope that we are looking at in the tourism sector, to see that when a tourist comes in, he's overwhelmed with what to explore. They come in for gorillas, but there is culture, and it is also amazingly beautiful that they do not have any option of missing this out. Well, that is it that we had for you in that travel news. And briefly going into the travel tip, I will advise everyone to make sure that as you're traveling, make sure that you keep up with the travel trends. If it is the new destinations, if it is the new sustainable trends, anything, just keep up with the travel trends so that you are not left behind. Thank you so much for watching. I am Irene Alena Misang, and coming up is Joan Paul Sonko with the business update.
Well, it's now time for us to check into the world of business. Monday, the 15th of July, 2024. And of course, we are in the first quarter of the financial year 2024-2025. What a time to be alive. My name is Joan Paul Sonko, and here it is coming in from the world of business. Now, we are going to start off our business stories by looking at the artificial intelligence world, because the OTIC Foundation, a Ugandan youth-led non-profit organization, is spearheading artificial intelligence in every city campaign. Now, this is AI in every city campaign in order to make artificial intelligence accessible to 1 million Ugandans come 2025. Now, the initiative targets various sectors, which include finance, creatives, engineers, farmers, and education, among others. And when you look at the latest training session of the AI in every city campaign in Kampala, it registered 569 participants converging at the ICT Innovation Hub that is in Nakawa in Kampala. Now, also, real-world examples were cited to illustrate AI's transformative potential, where companies like MTN and Airtel, which handle more financial transactions than traditional banks, showcase the power of continuous data analysis. Now, the value of mobile money transactions significantly, for example, increased by 22.6%. That is 191.3 trillion shillings in June 2023, compared to 156 of the same period as of June 2022. Now, the campaign is emphasizing on involving more women in artificial intelligence learning, and this focus is also to lay foundations that will enable business people to utilize artificial intelligence in most of their businesses, because, as you well know, artificial intelligence is the way to go. Now, different app developers or different developers world over, or software developers world over, are looking at enhancing AI or artificial intelligence to best suit the current generation. And that means anyone who will be left behind and having no knowledge about how AI can be utilized will also be kicked out of business in the long run. And that is why this campaign is geared towards ensuring that at least 1 million Ugandans are on the grid or are in the same basket of understanding the use of artificial intelligence by next year in 2025. Now, away from that, we now talk matters fishing, because the fishery sector is second after coffee in foreign exchange earnings for Uganda, according to data. Now, the sector is threatened with illegal and immature fish. And immature fishing is a conversation that we pretty much had even here on the show last week. This sector has been pretty much affected by premature fishing, and then also use of wrong fishing methods or illegal fishing methods. Now, 5 years back, when you look at the Fisheries Protection Unit's enrollment of the Uganda People's Defense Forces, rather the deployment of the Uganda People's Defense Forces by the Uganda's Fisheries Protection Unit, you get to realize that fishermen have appreciated the presence of the Fisheries Protection Unit and the UPDF on the lakes. Now, this clearly indicated that the Fisheries Protection Unit has tried to restore some sanity around the various landing sites. And this success has also been due to the sensitization that has continuously been moving on within the various landing sites where the Fisheries Protection Unit has been placed, and different UPDF officers, to ensure that, one, Uganda has better fishing methods, then two, fishing of premature fish becomes a myth. So those are some of the things that have been highly pushed on the agenda by the Fisheries Protection Unit, as well as the UPDF on various water bodies within the country. And looking at the figures that it is a foreign exchange earner for Uganda, it's one of the greatest foreign exchange earners, or coming second after coffee, you get to realize that we want it to be sustainable. And setting out sustainable plans means we have to ensure safe fishing methods. We have to also cut out on exploring means on premature fish or having premature fish on the market, but also safeguarding the water bodies where this fish is got. And well, that does it from our business news this morning as the week kicks off. But let's now look at the forex market and see how the different currencies have been faring on the exchange as you head out to transfer some currencies or to make some transfer changes. How then will you find the forex market? All right, well, I'll be giving you more details of the forex market tomorrow as business opens again this morning. But for now, I'm wishing you a good hunting week, and then all the best for the business community as you kickstart off your day this Monday. But for now, Chantal Oliver Canada is here with the latest, oh no, She's just here for the traffic updates. Then Olive Monica Najima will be back at the top of the hour with a discussion rotating around youth involvement in politics and how the youth can put an end to corruption in the country. For now, stick around. Good morning.
A very good morning to you. My name is Chantal Oliver Kanina, trying to make sure that you make your way to town using the best route possible. So let's see how different routes are faring so that you know which direction you will be taking depending on which part of town you're coming to. Now, at this very moment, I'm at the Wampeo Clock Tower. And the Wampeo Clock Tower is mad with a lot of traffic, especially for you who is exiting to join the Ginger Road, the Kampala Ginger Road Highway. That is where you'll be finding a lot of traffic. But if you are coming from Ginger Road and you're trying to connect to this very roundabout, you'll be finding no traffic. And if you are using Centenary Lane, you'll be finding traffic. Smooth flow, but also it lessens as you continue on Wampeo Avenue. And as you can see, there is no traffic along Wampeo Avenue except for the part that has junctions, and those junctions lead to just slow movement but no traffic. However, York Terrace is mad with a lot of traffic and slow movement. If you can avoid that route, I suggest you do not take it, because at the end of the day you will be stuck. Now onto Ginger Road. As you can see, Access Road is also mad with a lot of traffic. However, when you are coming from Station Road, you'll be finding no traffic. Access Road is safe. Mukwano Road is mad with some traffic. If you are coming to join the Mukwano roundabout, you'll be finding a lot of traffic. However, from behind there will be no traffic. As you can see, it only gets to be too much traffic as you are now getting into joining the roundabout. 6th Street is safe, you are okay. 7th Street, the same story. 8th Street as well, nothing for you to worry about. But if you are still on the Ginger Road Highway and you're trying to make your way to town, you'll be finding small holdups and a little bit of traffic. And then again, you'll be finding traffic at the junction that takes you to Station Road, the junction that also brings you up to Said Bar Road, but also the same junction that proceeds to town. But if you're proceeding to town, there is no traffic whatsoever except for slow movement as you are approaching the city center side. It's quite slow, and then gets to be the traffic gets to be too much. And if you are someone that wants to branch off from the Total City Center shopping mall, you'll be finding a lot of traffic on there. And when we proceed to Kampala Road lights, you'll be finding a lot of traffic. That is the lights that connect you down to Nasa Road. And also if you're trying to connect to Entebbe Road through that very junction, you'll be finding traffic before you hit the junction, and this is because of the lights and the junction. But after that, if you are proceeding, Speak Road is safe for you to navigate, and Kampala Road is relatively okay as you are making your way deeper into town. You'll be finding little to no traffic on that very road except slow movement, and the side of the square is mad with some bit of slow movement and traffic. Lumumba Avenue is mad with a lot of traffic. Nakasero Road has a lot of traffic. Tanan Avenue is mad with slow movement, and that is how you'll be finding different parts as you are trying to make your way to town. And well, that does it for our traffic updates this morning. Thank you for sticking around. Coming up next is your Good Morning Uganda agenda, so stay with us.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Click of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by. You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000. Or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21# and select daily or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Juko.
Yo.
What you check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja to the town or city near you. Between July and December this year, don't miss Uganda's beautiful stories from east to west, north to south in Tuko Pamoja.
Uganda, as we see today, never had a name. It had the regions that make it.
The battle for protecting the sovereign Uganda was lost in Dokolo.
Uganda, fortunately for us, is a confluence of all these races, the races of Africa.
Bunyoro would have simply created an East African community that we are looking for today.
The rulers of Bunyoro are actually Luos.
Genetically, we are even similar people.
We are one. Use that word, Pamoja.
To get a ticket, call 0778 787 660. Tuko Pamoja?
Dola na simu nga ndi mulimi wa butiko zansanga nga nnima butiko nga mazemu emyaka nga 5 kati bwe bazimpa nenyongeramu mu business nenziramu nendeeta nga bwe tubigula nga biri bwe biti okigula nga kiramba then n'okireeta n'okiteeka somewhere in a dark place kati then bw'okiteekawo after 10 to 15 days n'okiteekawo nekikyuka kala oba kikuwa kifaana bwe kiti then n'okiteekawo nekifuuka kala then bw'omaliriza n'otandika okukiteeka kuno kugundi ku madaala n'otandika okukifukirira kuba twafuna n'ebbomba tubifuna nga biri bwe biti ng'ensigo ziri munda nga wano basibyeko akapapula kati buli lwofukirira pressure y'amazzi gali gopika n'ebbumba gakimeza kiyita wano kuba already wabaira akapapula kukenekeneka ekitiko ky'ekyabya akapapula ako then nekifuluma n'okinoga kati after 1 month n'oddamu n'osala ensigo eri munda nayo nesigala ng'ejja kuba bw'oba okirese bw'oti ensigo tezivaayo teziggwayo n'okisala after some time nekisigala nga kimera okuva wano naye kati already zino zaali nga ziweddemu kati nasigadde embuukinze ngenda kuddamu kuleeta nali nsuubula ebintu bino 300 kuba wano ekiyumba kyali kinene nga kituuka eyo nga wonna wajjudde nga nsuubula 300 kati bwe twafuna sente za parish model siri omu tuli abantu nga 10 naye tweyawulamu abamu balimira ewalala n'abalala ne tulimira ewalala ne tuleeta 5 nga tufunye okwongerezebwako sente ezo tuganyuddwamu kubanga kati most times
Sente ngene enyamba kinene nnyo. Nfuna akasente katono naye ate ne nkagabanya abaana nina abaana basoma. Nsobola okutoolako nempa abaana. Ate bwe nfuna nga bino buno mba mbukazizza. Bwe mala okufuna buno mbuteeka ntundako nenfuna nenzizaawo capital ebisigadde ne tukola enva. Era abaana abasinga ffe kuno ku kyalo abasinga bamanyi ajjabuzi olinayo obutukukonze nina nti ago ojja kufuna enkyanga abamu mbawadde olwaleero era abamu ne mbawa enkya kati bwe biba nga byazze bingi abaana bakeza nakasero ne babitwala e Nakasero gye tubitunda akatale weekali bangi abendyetaaze era bangi abambuuza tusaze magezi ki ne tubalambululira ani gwe balina okulaba wawe balina okuyita okusobola okutuuka ku gundi kufuna ssente zino. Bangi abatubuuza naffe ne tubawa kyokkola era bangi abambuuza lwakuba nti abasinga tebalina we balimira naye nga bangi abandyetaaze okubeera mu bulimi nga buno tubalina era ssente bakyazeetaaga ku kusinziira ku ffe kye tufunyeemu buli lwakutuukako n'akwebuuzaako nomuga nti funa ssente za parish mod ssente si nnyingi mu kuzzaayo nyangu za kusasula.
With or in spaces where we need change. Now, you've heard about conversations regarding corruption over the last couple of months, ranging from members of parliament